Coming up, the Brooklyn Nets lose once again, but this time with the visiting New York Knicks, they send a bit of a moral victory message as they play them tight, they play them down to the wire, they come up short and improve their tankathon odds. We dive in coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Armbrecht. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. We're 100% free on all those great platforms, and let you know that today's episode is sponsored by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And Doug, there are no moral victories in the NBA or in sports for that matter, but when you can play a team like the Knicks who come in visiting, who give the thank you video to Mikal Bridges, 99-95 down to the last possessions, and still accomplish all the other things you want to for your season in the big picture, I think I call that a win in spite of it being a loss.
Yeah, this was always, it's funny about rooting for this stuff because we just had talked about this time and again. It's about where to stand with the rooting because you're like, okay, almost every other situation, you want to beat the Knicks. Bridges is on the other team now. You're thinking to yourself, this would be, there's a lot of Knicks fans in Barclays. It feels maybe like a Knicks home game a little bit, which is always rough for Nets fans, I know.
Yes.
And then they play them all the way down to the wire and lose, and you're like, okay, that's okay. And it's just we just entered this weird stage of rooting and fandom because these would be the lock it up situations where fans would just be going absolute full tilt because of the narratives and all the other stuff. And that's just not totally the case. And yet there's still a little part of you, even if you're probably pro tanking, that wants to watch this game and it'd be like, it wouldn't be too bad if Mikal sucked and the Nets won. And Mikal did kind of suck. And the Nets did almost win. And we can talk a lot about the game because there's some interesting takeaways here. But on a high level, it's just always weird to sit in this zone. But ultimately a quote unquote good loss for the Nets, even though beating the Knicks here would have been a nice, at least a little cannon fodder for fandom.
Yes, of course. And so there are a couple of things on a high level beyond this game, but inside of it, as you mentioned, it's pretty easy to watch this one and see it coming down to the wire. Nice little sequence. Cam Johnson, top of the key, back iron. And you see as they walk, I think there's because the Knicks call a timeout there, as he's walking back to the huddle, just has his head in his hands. And he's like, that was, and it's funny too, because whether or not we think Cam Johnson is going to get traded by the deadline, whether he'll be here through it, you can see that even in these games, again, the entire roster understands what the organization is trying to do. But we said this time and again as well, the players don't care about what the agenda is for the organization. So when that shot goes up, Cam Johnson's open and the entire bench is open. Put it down. Let's go ahead and stick it to the Knicks one time here. There's a couple of other really good sequences in this game too. There's a lot of rebounding moments here, even though the Nets won the rebound battle late. There's a couple where Nick Claxton just cannot out-muscle on that high rebound off the shot from Cam Johnson. It bounces favorably. Hart catches it. He's able to call the timeout on the baseline there. But does that ring true as far as those couple of key moments where we know too, by the way, now, when you look at the tankathon odds, the loss for the Nets is more important than, we did it before. Well, if you beat the Bucks, it technically helps where their picks are going to be. Yeah, all these teams are good now. So beating them this one game isn't going to change. Ultimately, they all end up in the mid to late 20s, whereas the Nets actually move up the board here with this loss. So rooting for the victory was easy. And the soft landing in losing was really pillowy soft when you talk about where the Nets are.
Yeah, by the way, that Josh Hart rebound, I don't know if you rewatch that, where he started, he was behind Cam Johnson. He was guarding D'Lo on a reset. And so he's because D'Lo kind of just comes back out to see if in case Cam Johnson needs to reset that at all. And so Josh Hart starts there and somehow gets it's unbelievable. To be able to to just have the nose. He just takes the perfect angle. He takes and gets right in through traffic. That's why he's so good at that. It's why he's one of the best pound for pound rebounders there is. No, but I think on a player level, of course, we've said this time and again, the players don't want to tank. The players are playing their hardest. This is a group of players that is not trying to lose. And this, frankly, that mindset is why the Nets, that mindset plus Jordy Fernandez's coaching is why the Nets, who have significantly less skill than nearly every other team in the league, I would say, especially on like a very young player level,
Yes,
have 14 wins, right? Like they have 14 wins somehow. And it's because it's because of those shots by Cam Johnson at the end, which I think he mostly knew wasn't going down, but it was dead on enough that there was like some hope, I think, that he could like back rim it in. Because like you could see his reaction that he was disappointed. These guys want to win. They were playing really hard. They know the narrative stakes for themselves. They know that this is crosstown stuff. They know they need to see these guys. Johnson and Bridges are friends, right? Like there's a lot of other reasons for them to want to win this game besides just going out there every night and playing. Because like there are just, Spike Lee's in the stands. There's other stuff that goes. Sidney Sweeney in the stands. There you go. Maybe get a nice little, get a nice win.
Tell me about Spike Lee. Like, come on now, knock it off.
Where the stakes have really ramped up. But so yeah, I just think there's enough on the player level. You're just not going to toggle it on and off at all. And the Nets just have enough like sort of heart. Yeah, it's so funny. This is long, but if they just had like 40% of this heart on the teams that actually had like stuff going on for them, and not to say they didn't have heart, but like they didn't have like this kind of like juice, I don't think, right? And it's just like, oh, we just could have given a little bit of a little vial of that to these other teams that just seem to underperform every single time. It would have been nice, but yeah, I think on a player level we don't have to worry about that.
That in a smaller shoe size, as we always say. But the other one, so I'll put it in here too, because there's a lot of things we want to get to. The other big sequence, and this will roll over beyond the first segment here, is if you want a little sweet, if you want to feel good about yourself, have Mikal Bridges go towards the basket, have Day'Ron Sharpe just absolutely beast him as he tries to go to the rim. Loose ball goes the other way. D'Angelo Russell, or it might have been Jalen Wilson with a little bounce pass back to Noah Clowney, who absolutely monsters it down. It's like freeze frame it. Give me those 6 seconds on a loop. And that felt incredibly satisfying as well. And you mentioned Mikal not having a good game. I think it's all the little elements that make up where once the final buzzer sounds, you go, played him tight, down a couple possessions. D'Angelo Russell, who missed a game-winning opportunity in LA, he knocked down a dagger 3 late here to pull the Nets back within a possession to make it interesting down the stretch. A couple of these nice moments. Like I do think blocking Mikal and him having a bad night is kind of important to the story you tell yourself about this game. After the Nets put up the thank you montage on the Jumbotron, and fans were debating that coming into the game as well. What do you do or don't do? Everyone making the joke, well, of course, you thank him for all the picks that he gave us. Other people, no, he failed the organization miserably. All of those things can go to the side. But I will say, when Day'Ron blocked him, I went, oh, not bad. I don't mind that.
Yeah.
A little bit sweeter than if you had blocked any other player on the Knicks. That one felt a little bit sweeter. That being the case, though, there is the matchup between Cat and Nicholas Claxton that did not go so well for large portions of this game, as well as what this looks like in the big picture as around the league. Some other key teams went out and won themselves some games and helped the Nets in the Tankathon odds. We'll get into that here in just one moment.
All right, before we get to that, I'll tell you about our friends over at Gametime. Look, if you're buying tickets for the concert, for the comedy show, for the theater, and for the game, the Nets game, even, you got to head to our friends over at Gametime. The energy, the excitement, even if you Barclays last night, that Barclays was rocking. Yeah, so there's some Knicks fans, but whatever. You could have gotten your tickets over on Gametime. Gametime's made it even easier to get those tickets to your favorite events, to get the Gametime picks. The feature filters out. The fluff. There you go, a little tongue twister, to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time and searching for thousands of tickets. If you go to Gametime right now, there's some pretty good deals here. Suns at Nets, old friend Kevin Durant. Suns just traded for a lot more picks here with the Jazz, starting at $17. $17 to see the Suns on Wednesday. There's still time. Heat at Nets coming in here over the weekend too, starting at $29. Just some of what you'll get over on Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it Gametime?
All right, so as we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about the 99-95 loss for the Brooklyn Nets to the visiting New York Knicks in the fourth quarter, where the Nets held the Knicks to just 15 points, 20-15, outscored them, but came up short, obviously, in the end. The other player, as we talk about some of the key sequences here, I mentioned that he knocked down one of those dagger threes, is D'Angelo Russell. When you look at his box score, You see 6 of 17. Not a great night in 31 minutes of action. We got to the line 7 times, but had 10 assists. And even in spite of the 3 turnovers, he had 4 personal fouls, I think, in the second quarter. Ends up finishing with 5, so plays clean. Comes up with 3 blocks. Take that to the classic box score for any point guard in the NBA. And we said this before when he's been on this, since he's been on this team. The value of a veteran, experienced point guard, it is you cannot excuse for it or account for it in any other way until you see it on the court. And we have seen that every time that he's played for Brooklyn, just how much it matters for this team overall. Yeah,
the crazy push and pull with tanking is that you want to tank, but the best way to actually develop your players, especially your bigs and stuff, is to play with a good point guard. And if you play with a good point guard, you're going to raise your floor, and it's going to be hard to tank. Like this is the tanking paradox, I would say, because D'Angelo Russell, Dennis Schroeder, these 2 guys prove this rule that I just made up. And it's that, but it's serious. Like, think about it.
Yes.
It's true. It's like these other teams that have struggled, I think, with tanking sometimes because they don't just have like a good floor general, and they don't have a veteran. And I get why. Like those guys don't want to play with those teams, and it's just not going to work out. So you end up not being able to do it. Then you have to have a point guard that's learning on the fly, and that can be really tough if the guy is overwhelmed, right? So anyway, rewinding here to D'Angelo Russell, he's been pretty much their best player when he plays for this very reason. He has great court vision. He is able to really set up the bigs, especially Daron Sharp, which I get to his numbers here in a little bit when these guys have played together. And if you want to see a team that has tanking all the way down to what's happening in the coaches and the sidelines, look no further than the fourth quarter, where the Knicks have like 3 points in the first 6 or 7 minutes of the fourth quarter. The Nets are in the game, and they just sit D'Angelo Russell for let's see here real quick. They sit him for they sit him for like 5.5 minutes, 5 minutes. When if you're trying to win games,
as you do in a tight game,
which has been their best player. He's like plus 10 on the point at that point in the game or something like that, and he's been easily their best player. And they're like, yeah, we'll wait. We'll wait to get you back in the game, and you'll play 31 minutes. And if you want to tank, you play your better players less minutes, and especially guys who are going to be able to raise the floor up for everyone else considerably. So he was really, really good, but this is just what happens. Like, and by the way, smart on the fans, and I think we said it too, that said when they traded for him, like, oh, this is like not the guy you trade for, right? Like we just got rid of Schroeder for this exact reason. Like, why are we bringing this guy back? He's not the same.
It's all backwards, guys. We're doing
the same player. Yeah, they're not the same player by any stretch of the imagination, but they unlock the same things for other players.
Yeah,
and so I mean, I'm glad to see him play really well, but it's just so funny. Yeah, he's like, why isn't he checked back in? Oh, right. They don't want to win.
And by the way, it's you say they're not the same player as Schroeder, but D'Angelo Russell has a different experience level in terms of what what he does on the court and what he's done in the past. So you see it every single possession that he's on the floor. And by the way, you also notice it when he's not on the court because things don't look nearly as cohesive as they do when he is. Incidentally,
by the way, real quick, who can dribble on this team when he comes off the court? I'm asking you seriously, who can even dribble on the team when he comes off the court?
I think Tosan does a pretty good job.
Tosan, he's like the backup point guard.
Yeah. But by the way, it's like that in case like sometimes listen, let's be honest. Maybe you go to get yourself, a drink or something, you're grabbing a snack because it's a late Tuesday night. When you come back in and you see Tosan bringing the ball up the court, you go, now hold on a second. Wait. Okay. No, no D'Angelo Russell.
Funny too, because they have like similar hairstyles. Yeah, like they look there's like a little they look a little similar. I don't know. It's just such a funny sorry to interrupt you. It's just a very funny dynamic.
The one other thing that I'll say is 10 assists, as I mentioned before, for D'Angelo Russell. No other player on this roster had more than 2 assists. Now, you can make a case, hey, 4 guys had 2 assists, so that's, spread it around a little bit. But just to really drill it home, there's no Ben Simmons in this game, obviously. We don't talk about him much right now because he hasn't played, but I find the Cam Thomas of this all to be very interesting about how he and D'Angelo Russell would play off each other and what this team would look like. I can tell you, for a fact, because we'll never be able to know for sure. So it has to be 100% true. If Cam Thomas is playing in this game, the Nets are winning this one. Like, these are the kind of games you look back at and go, well, if you gave me one more really good scorer with D'Angelo Russell for 31 minutes, yeah, they're probably going to have a lot easier time offensively, or even those times when you take them off the court. How are you going to make sure the offense still has rhythm? You're going to put it into a guy that's different, because what he does is get the ball in his hands and clear everybody out. But really impressive night for D'Angelo Russell overall. You also made mention there of Daron Sharp, who I think has benefited significantly from having D'Angelo Russell brought into this team via the trade. He ends up giving you just 14 minutes. So it's funny that we talk about him in a very glowing fashion for a small sample size. 3 of 4, gets to the line 4 times, knocks them all down. Kind of a big deal for bigs on the Brooklyn Nets. And then gives you 3 rebounds, a plus 15 on the margins, and 10 points. He just looks like he fits better into the flow of things relative to Nicholas Claxton, different players, different roles. But in a year when you want to see some growth from guys, Day'Ron Sharpe, we haven't seen the full minutes, in the role that we want to see, but he has looked comfortable when he's been out there on the court, even if it's been smaller samples.
Well, the other way you win is again, what I said with D'Angelo Russell is that you don't play the players that are playing really well. You sit them out, because Day'Ron's the other one, like Claxton.
Right.
We can talk
play
about
him 20 minutes, and that's win the game probably.
I mean, Claxton gets completely brutalized for long stretches by Karl Anthony Towns, to the point where they just cleared Towns out like at the top of the key, and they just said have it, and he would just take him to the rim. Anyway, but not to have him catch a stray here while we're talking about D'Angelo Russell and Day'Ron Sharpe, but like when we talk about getting bigs into the action in ways that they can really utilize their skill sets, if you're a good big-bodied screen setter, right, then the D'Angelo Russell can kind of do business with you, because he's going to set you up on the screen. He's going to methodically make it so the defender, he's going to use the geometry to make sure the defender walks himself into that screen. And he's just going to kind of get you on his hip and then decide what to do, right? Like he's going to get you on his hip, decide what to do. He's going to pull up for a 3 if you just give him too much space and come over. Like he can shoot the 3 if you come over. He can shoot the 3 if you come too far under. If you come too far under, but he doesn't have the shot, he's going to get the guy rolling to the rim, and he's a threat to pull up in the mid-range because he can hit that shot, right? So he actually is kind of the guy, if you play with a big-bodied center who has any clue, then you can really, like I said, do business with that, because that's exactly what his skill set is. And it's not a ton of minutes. The other guy, I'm telling you, if they just play Day'Ron 20 minutes and take Claxton off for 5 more minutes, they might win. Like that's how well that combination was working. These two guys have played 47 minutes so far this year.